Hello, my name is Mackenzie, and my project I'll be walking you through today is called Uplift Center, and it is a facility for ALS therapy and research. Throughout this presentation, I'll provide you with some insight into what ALS is, so you can have a better understanding of the significance of my project. As well, I'll walk you through the design and the decisions I made in respect to the ALS community. I have developed the space for patients and families who are experiencing ALS within British Columbia. This center will incorporate both a research unit for clinical trials, as well as a care unit for the necessary therapy and counseling that patients will need. This allows for research professionals and scientists, therapists, and caregivers to coexist in the same facility with the patients, which allows the patients to receive not only essential support, but also well-educated care and assistance throughout their experience. So what is ALS? ALS is a motor neuron disease, so it's a disease in the brain that gradually paralyzes the systems of the body. This disconnects any vital communication from the brain to the muscles of the body that we are typically able to move at will. The muscles of the head, the face, and the neck typically become paralyzed first, but it varies through everyone. Though research has shown that ALS can be passed down through families, through generations, the most common type is sporadic ALS because it can affect anyone regardless of gender, ethnicity, or age. There's no specific one singular cause of this, which is what researchers are working towards. As well, there's no cure, which is why clinical trials are crucial, especially now as we're learning more about this disease. So these are just some facts and figures so you can comprehend exactly how scary this disease actually is. So in British Columbia, there's about 400 people living with ALS right now, and about 3,000 living with ALS in Canada. With 37 million people as our country's population, 2 out of every 100,000 people are diagnosed each year in Canada. Of those diagnosed, about 80% of people will pass within 2 to 5 years. Some may pass within a few months. Of those diagnosed, less than 10% of those diagnoses are hereditary, which is what I was saying before. There's no singular cause for this disease, whether it's environmental, hereditary, but only less than 10% are passed down by families, so it's really unknown at this point. And lastly, family impact. So 80% of the burden care is shouldered by the families, which is why this center is super important. This disease is expensive. It's mentally draining on both the patient and the family. And so that is one of the driving factors of my project. So what is the problem at hand? So there are 3 main issues that need to be solved. So location of occupations, independency of a facility, and location of clinical trials. So location of occupations. The ALS Society of BC is inconveniently segregated into multiple distant locations throughout BC right now. So location for support group therapy, counseling, physical therapy, the ALS Society of BC, their headquarters. Those are all within multiple different locations in British Columbia. There's no one specific space for these occupations to take place. Independency of a facility. So kind of piggybacking off of what I just said, there is no standalone facility for ALS rehabilitation. So the only ALS rehabilitation center located in BC is a building shared with other healthcare facilities. This is the GF Strong Rehabilitation Center in Vancouver. There's currently no standalone center for all of these occupations to take place within BC for ALS patients. And clinical trials. So there is a very limited capacity of resources to support clinical trials and research in BC. Very important right now, people are researching for a cure, and there is no spot to do this in BC right now. It's very expensive, there needs to be a lot of space, and so I'm proposing to have a laboratory within my facility to support this endeavor. So the working solution right now is inspired by 4 main points. So improving the quality of life of the users, reputable care, active inclusivity in the design, and community and personal connection. So by providing a distinct and specified location for ALS support and research, patients and families can have a reliable, consistent space to receive the necessary care and counseling that they need. The significance of this project is motivated through personal reasons, so within my family and my friends. However, the main significance is to provide an improved quality of life for all patients and families who are experiencing this disease. This is through inclusivity in the space, providing a social, mental, physical, and spiritual well-being for the patients and their families, and providing consistency within the interior, consistency in a location, so the patients can really just relax, enter the space, feel like their life has purpose. The user demographic of the space really is anyone. It's anyone who's experiencing ALS. The thing about this ailment is it doesn't target a singular body, though typically it will target older populations, about 40 plus years. There have been people in their late 20s who have gotten this disease. Oftentimes people who are living with ALS will develop abilities different from each other at different paces in life. And so some are living in a motorized wheelchair, they don't have the ability to speak, they need to be fed through a tube, they need caregiver assistance 24/7, they cannot move their body at all. Some are early on in their diagnosis and they're still using a cane, they're still walking, they're still verbally communicating, they're able to move parts of their body, maybe not some parts. It really is across the board. Anyone can use this facility, and this is why it's so important to create an inclusive space. The client for this project is the ALS Society of BC. ALS BC is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 1981 with the intent to raise awareness about the daily life of people living with ALS and the effects it has on their family. Through fundraisers and donations, they have raised critical funds for families experiencing ALS and for crucial research and trials to find a cure. Their mission is to provide direct support to patients, their families, and caregivers. This includes an equipment loan program, which is a donation program that distributes equipment to patients and families who are in need of any assistive equipment in their homes. Their second point is to raise funds for patient services and research. They put on many fundraisers such as golfathons, walks to end ALS, and their third point is to increase public awareness and understanding of ALS. You may remember a few years ago the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. That was a huge awareness spreader. The location of this facility will be at the UBC campus grounds in Vancouver, closer to the south end of campus. By placing this facility at UBC, there is the opportunity to collaborate with the UBC Faculty of Medicine on research and clinical trials. There is a wide variety of on-site campus amenities to be used by patients and their families while they are visiting the center. There's grocery stores nearby and markets, daycares for families, the UBC Welcome Center, the Center for Drug and Research Development is close by as well, and these are no longer than about a 5-minute walk away from where the center is located. So here the building has a north-south orientation where patients can enter from the west side to the main parking lot. As well, there's a second street entry in the south to the proposed overnight building, and to the east, there's another entrance for deliveries from the equipment loan program that will drive around to the loading bays there. To the east of the site also is a forested park with crisscrossing walking trails for patients and families to explore if they need to get outside and connect to nature. The building I've used for this project is the Vancouver Island Regional Library, located on Hammond Bay Road in Nanaimo. This 29,000 square foot building hosts an administration center and the new construction of the library branch, and includes loading bays that total approximately 2,000 square feet of receiving and shipment space. Utilizing passive design techniques, this building has an abundance of clerestory windows which optimizes sunlight throughout the building during the day. Large overhangs and exterior shading help to block out some of the sun in the hotter summer months. They also use locally harvested fir columns and beams, and this really grounds the space and connects it to nature within the interior. It was important that I seek out a single-level building, as most people who will be using the center will be in wheelchairs. For the precedent studies that I did research on, I decided to do a different variety of spaces that will help with the different spaces that will be incorporated into Uplift Center. Nexus 8 Traumatology Clinic and the clinic are both physical therapy centers. Nexus 8 takes a more medical approach. They have a small operations room in their facility, where the clinic takes a more holistic approach. They have a yoga center incorporated into their clinic. Sky Yi Healthy Life Center is a biophilic counseling center that depicts just how important it is to connect to nature during a counseling session for mental well-being and mental clarity. Albedo Pharmacy is a small-scale pharmacy that helped me do research into optimizing small amounts of space for pharmaceutical needs. The Ed Roberts campus is a large multi-purpose facility designed to extensive universal standards, which helped me do research into incorporating universal design into Uplift Center. Move Adapted Fitness and Neuromotion Physiotherapy and Rehabilitation are both physical therapy gyms, and I did research into the equipment that they use to help me decide what I will need to incorporate into the occupational therapy gym within Uplift Center. Inspired by the words reliable, supportive, encouraging, grounded, and warm, the design intent of Uplift Center is motivated by a terracotta color palette blended with natural wood tones and biophilic elements to bring in an essence of the exterior biological world. By designing with a minimalistic and sustainable approach, patients will not be overwhelmed and can feel comfortable in finding some independence throughout the space. A simplified curvilinear layout will aid to the psychological rest of the patient, while also simplifying the interior for ease of wayfinding. For the floor plan, I have divided the spaces into 3 distinct units. The south end occupies the public and social activities, the central floor plan unifies all of the therapy and health facilities, and the north end houses the ALS BC headquarters and larger scale operations. The large-scale space at the north end of the plan is the facility which will house the equipment loan program. There are 3 large loading bay garage doors, which will be crucial in the shipment and receiving of the donated equipment. The facility just to the left of the equipment loan storage is the proposed clinical trials laboratory. This location allows it to be out of the central circulation path of the building, but remains near the main offices and exam rooms. Noting the washrooms, with an occupancy of about 400 people, there are 11 total washrooms in the facility, dispersed throughout each unit, and each one of them is universally designed. This includes lift inserts, which will help patients maneuver the toilet on their own or with assistance. To provide an abundance of wheelchair passing space and ease of circulation, the main corridors are 7 feet wide. The south end is where the more public activities take place. Within this unit, there is the reception and lobby waiting areas, a music therapy studio, a support group room, a cafe and lounge, and a small-scale pharmacy. Within the lobby waiting areas, I've divided them into 2 zones, one to wait for the counseling offices and another to wait for the exam rooms, though patients have freedom to sit wherever they choose. As well, there's a small coffee and tea bar for anyone to use. Off of the reception is a small baggage area for families to store their personal items if they've traveled a longer distance to arrive. After conducting research into different therapy methods used for ALS patients, I decided to incorporate a music therapy studio. Using different shaped instruments aids to continue working the patient's fine motor skills. The focus it takes to play instruments also aids to increase brain function, as well light vocal warm-ups can assist to increase and monitor verbal communication. The space for support group therapy allows patients from all over BC to come together and share their stories with each other and find a sense of connection. This room allows for plenty of natural light, but is made to feel intimate and private, as some of the topics that may be discussed within a session are difficult to talk about. As well, this room can occupy additional social activities such as art therapy. The cafe and lounge is open to the public on campus, as well as for the users of the space. Collaborating with the culinary program at UBC, the cafe serves small lunch items as well as a variety of drink options for patients with less of an ability to chew. There are plenty of spaces for wheelchairs and movable furniture to keep the space flexible. The small-scale pharmacy is provided for patients to receive the necessary prescriptions needed as prescribed by their doctor. A provided waiting seat and table is available for consultation from a pharmacist if necessary. This location is positioned near the entrance of the building because a patient may pick up their prescription at the end of the day and leave the facility thereafter. The central floor plan houses the health and therapy unit. Within this section, there are 4 counseling rooms, an occupational therapy gym, a nurse's office, and 4 exam rooms. Within the 4 counseling rooms, there are 3 different types of therapies provided: speech therapy, nutritional counseling, and clinical counseling. In speech therapy, a speech-language pathologist will evaluate swallowing needs and abilities and will provide techniques to stimulate safe swallowing for the patient. They will also assess the communication of the patient and recommend tactics to support speech and evaluate the need for augmentative and alternative communication systems. Within the 2 clinical counseling offices, a clinical counselor will provide therapeutic, psychological, and emotional support to patients and families. They offer guidance with processing and adjusting to their new life, especially as symptoms increase over time. As well, the counselors provide advice on navigating the healthcare system to patients with a new diagnosis. Counselors provide overall support, advice, and individualized coping methods. And in nutritional counseling, a registered dietitian evaluates nutrition and hydration status of the patient. They will work with the patient and family to provide educated assistance pertaining to the patient's diet as to minimize unwanted weight loss. Within each counseling room, a counselor's desk is provided for patient files and personal storage, and the furniture within the room is movable to allow for flexibility of the space. A lot of the elements that will be used is more wood tones to bring a connection of nature to the space. As they all have windows, there will be natural light as well that is welcome into the rooms. Within the occupational therapy rehabilitation gym, a physiotherapist works with the patient through individualized exercise programs to optimize safe and independent mobility. Various assisting equipment will be utilized to aid the patient along with the aid of a physiotherapist. As well, a physiotherapist will work with the patient to assist with cardiorespiratory management techniques to stimulate positive lung function. Because this gym is located at the center of the facility, interior glazing allows the natural light from the rest of the building to enter into the space. Within the gym, 2 private physical therapy treatment rooms are provided for one-on-one sessions with a physical therapist. They're just separated by some curtains. The corridor between the rehabilitation gym and the counseling offices is extra wide to allow for that seating space. As well, there are clerestory windows above. So an abundance of natural light will be in that hallway and will be able to enter into the gym. Within the nurse's office, a registered nurse manages the patient's symptoms, recommends treatments, and refers to other healthcare professionals when deemed necessary. In the 4 doctor's office exam rooms, a neurologist assesses patients' symptoms and will run diagnostic testing when deemed necessary. The neurologist will be scheduled and available ahead per patient's needs. Incorporated into the rooms is also a seating space for the patient's caregiver or the patient's family member. As well, the design of the space is looking to be opposite of the typical sort of stark healthcare facility where it's just white everything. There will be color in there, there will be wood, just to ease the patient and make them feel comfortable. Just to quickly mention, to the left of the nurse's office is an event storage space. This would be storage for tents and tables and chairs for their fundraisers that they do outside of the center. At the north end of the building is the ALS-BC headquarters, so it's their offices. The offices that are provided are the Executive Director, the Executive Director's Assistant and Donor Relations, the Communications Coordinator, the Patient and Support Coordinator, the Volunteer Coordinator, and Volunteer Workstations. As well, 2 others that are provided are the Equipment Loan Program Manager and the Equipment Loan Program Coordinator, but those offices are within the equipment loan facility. Additional areas that are included within this unit is the staff lounge and lunchroom, caregiver counseling, and a boardroom. For caregiver therapy, an on-site psychologist will be available to work with caregivers to develop coping strategies when dealing with grief, as well as aiding caregivers in how they can better their overall well-being while continuing to provide reputable care to the patients. The boardroom is a large space that is provided for meetings with different parts of the ALS-BC team. For example, my dad is the Vice President of the ALS Society of BC, but he lives on the island, so lots of people will be traveling to have meetings, and this large boardroom seats 18 people, so it will be provided for that reason. So for elevations, I've provided some that are of the public spaces as well as some that are of more of the private spaces, just to get a feel of the height of the different areas and the intended feel as well. At the cafe service counter, rather than just making a cutout section where wheelchairs can roll under, I decided to make an extra wide countertop with a 19-inch overhang that is accessible from anywhere at the counter. I had placed a large menu at the front of the counter with large font. It's easier to read. You don't have to be searching behind the counter to read it as well. So for the service counter, I decided to go with a more playful terrazzo and then a more subdued wooden base and some hanging terracotta pendants. At the cafe banquette seating, just behind the banquette is this sort of feature white sheer drapery with these orb sconces kind of poking through and making the drapery glow. It has this sort of comforting atmosphere to it. As well, the banquettes will be this terracotta color, and terracotta pendants will be hanging over the seating spaces. I've made sure to allow for some space for wheelchairs. However, the chairs in front of the banquettes are, of course, movable, so wheelchairs can go kind of wherever they please. So this is meant to be essentially one long elevation. It just didn't quite fit on the page. So for the top elevation, the social spaces entry, this is meaning the music therapy studio and the support group room. So for the support group room, there is a little bulletin board outside of the door. This allows for any updates and notices before entering the space. As well, there is a bench just to kind of wait outside. There's kind of this open gathering space just before you enter the support group room. As well, there's interior glazing above because the exterior windows behind go about 23 feet high. And then there's the music therapy studio. The ceiling kind of drops there, separating the spaces. And then there's the entry to the washrooms just to the very left. So the cafe seating and lounge on the east wall, so this would essentially be the right side of the top elevation. This sort of reiterates the banquette design, but it's just placed on the exterior windows. And then there's more of lounge seating underneath this ceiling drop that's about 9 feet tall. And so there's some couches and some chairs, and there's space outside for wheelchairs to roll up as well. There's some acoustic panels. Those like stripes halfway down the wall in the lounge are these wood pulp acoustic panels. And yeah, there's just these same pendants throughout the space and just reiterating that kind of calming terracotta wood palette. So this reception and waiting area elevation is looking towards the south. So you'll see the reception behind there, just like the cafe counter. It has a large 19-inch overhang, and so it's fully accessible. It's accessible height. And above the reception is this wood veneer curved feature. It has those pendants hanging down not too low. And yeah, you'll also see above that this clerestory window. Those are kind of a theme throughout the space, which allows for a beautiful amount of natural light to enter the space as well. The ceilings are about 23 feet high here. I dropped it just about a foot and added these wooden beam acoustic panels. They look like wooden beams, but they're acoustic, which is awesome. And then as well in the center, just to add a little bit of height, I put this indoor tree there. It's actually incorporated into the benching system that's in the center of the waiting area. So to the right of the center sort of tree feature is one waiting space made for the counseling areas. The one to the left is made for the exam spaces, but patients can sit where they please. And you'll also see just behind the tree on the wall is this large font wayfinding. And yeah, it's kind of just important to reiterate that wayfinding where I can. So people don't get kind of lost throughout the space. They will, for the most part, be with a caregiver or their family. However, it does give people a sense of independence if they're able to find their way around a space by themselves. So I've developed two corridor elevations. The one on the top is the counseling room corridor, so that is looking west. There's the 4 counseling room doors there, the entries, and they are kind of set back, and so it's not like a long, daunting hallway of doors. It's more homey, and it feels more comfortable that way. As well, there's, beside the doors are just the same size windows, and they are half fogged glass, and so it still leaves privacy for the patient inside, but I'm trying to get the most amount of natural light I can from the space. So by having interior glazing, I'm optimizing the natural light throughout the whole building. Just outside of the rooms, they are numbered 1 through 4, just for ease of wayfinding. If they're being told where to go, you'll go to room number 2, and it'll be easy to find. And then there's also the door push button on the same little plaque as the number, so it's easy to see. And as well, there's the clerestory windows above. Common theme throughout this whole building, lots of natural light will be let into this corridor too, which is awesome. So that's why there's not really any ceiling lights. There's mostly cove lighting that's coming from that drop just above the doors. There's a light above the doors, and there's a little wall sconce just to kind of light up those walls. So there's some visual interest. What you'll notice in both of these elevations is this sort of cutout, and it's this built-in hand railing so it doesn't stick out of the wall. It's actually cut into the walls, and people can use it along the corridors because both of these corridors are quite long, and so by providing some railings, people can feel comfortable walking through the space. The bottom elevation is the laboratory corridor nooks, so it's looking east. You'll notice these two windows, and so I've provided two windows just to look into the laboratory. There'll be a space where people can watch kind of the work happening, which is super cool, and just interact with the research that's going on, with the trials that are happening. Of course, nothing confidential, but just so patients can feel connected to that part of their life. So also provided in this corridor are these two seating nooks, just with some biophilic elements above, just some plants in these little cutout shelving for some visual interest. These little nooks can be used just to rest as they're walking down the corridor, or if they're waiting for the exam rooms. The patient can sit there, or if families are waiting outside of the exam rooms for their family member to be finished, these nooks are just provided for any form of rest that anyone may see necessary. As well, just above this corridor is a vaulted clerestory window. Again, clerestory windows, so awesome. So there's lots of natural light within this hallway as well. So the last two elevations I've developed are more smaller elevations, and they're more of the private spaces. And so there's the counseling room. It's looking to the west wall where all of the windows are. So this isn't one counseling room. It's essentially what all of them would look like. They're kind of mirrored to each other, just with some differences as the existing walls may be laid out on the exterior. But yeah, you'll just see that I've kind of popped out the back wall a little bit just to make like a small 1-foot shelf for little plants to sit on. There's lamps in the corner that point upwards, and so they'll kind of light up the corners of the room. Draperies can come across the windows if need be, but right now they're just open. There's a credenza behind the seating furniture, and looking towards the coffee table, that space is a lot of room for a wheelchair to pull up if they need to as well. There are two lounge seats available, so one would be for the counselor, the other would be for a family member or the caregiver who is in on the session, and then the sofa provided will be more like bariatric furniture, so it'll be sturdy, easy for patients to get up and get down. It won't be sort of one of those soft sink-in couches, but it will still, of course, be comfortable for the patients. In the music therapy studio, I decided to show the north piano wall, and so there's just these built-in shelving which will house more of the smaller instruments and any other necessary storage that needs to be stored there. Behind that is these acoustic panels, and they're made of wood pulp, and they're a white color, as you'll see in the little image beside, and so they don't distract. They're just calming, and they're kind of there doing their job. Above are those lines. Those are also acoustic. It's acoustic baffling, and there's acoustic lighting kind of every 6 panels or so. So the space isn't going to be echoey. It's not going to be distracting to the patients. It's going to be comforting, a place where they can learn, a place where they can relax, release some anxiety. So in conclusion, the main driving point for this project is to improve the quality of life for people who are living with ALS. This will help them understand that they truly do have a purpose in life, no matter their abilities. This space aims to provide an uplifting atmosphere that will support the patients and families through this difficult time. The provided therapy and care units can assist families with long-term coping methods, and the proposed laboratory can help increase the motivation to find a cure. By collecting all of the separate parts of ALS BC and housing them into one facility, patients can feel as though they have a consistent, reliable space to always come to for reputable care, assistance in the home, or whatever their needs may be. I hope you learned not only about my proposed building itself, but about the daunting ailment that is ALS and how it is affecting our families in BC and around the globe. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I look forward to answering your questions.